Where we are, thanks first of all for having me join you and your audience. Where we are, the annual statement, of course, we are not through the year yet, so it's a provisional statement which takes account of the first 10 months of 2011. And so far, for temperatures, there's a clear indication that it is about 0.45 degrees above normal, which means and the norm is 14 degrees C of global average temperatures if you start counting in 1970s. So we are above that. However, this year is cooler than 2010, even though it is cooler because of the effect of La Nina. Now, La Nina is the opposite of El Nino, which probably is much more well known as a climate indicator, where the ocean areas along the coast of South America, on the western side of South America, tend to change between warm and cool. The El Nino tends to be warmer ocean temperatures. That has impacts globally on different weather patterns through the world. Cooler patterns, the La Nina tends to have a cooling effect over the ocean. So what we have noticed though is that even though we've had the cooling impact of the La Nina, temperatures are still higher than they have been in any other La Nina year in the past. So this year, 2011, provisionally, still counts as most likely the 10th highest ranking year in terms of temperatures in the world.
And how long have these temperatures been tracked? And where are the hot years coming? If we were to spread them out across a graph, where would you see the warmer years?
The warmest years actually have occurred in the last decade, between 1997 and present. The 13 warmest years have occurred in the last 15 years, starting in just after 2000. So, and the record-breaking year was 2010. We have done a survey of 100 members out of 100 countries, out of 189 countries. None of those countries have recorded temperatures lower than their normal temperatures over the last decade. All of them, without fail, have recorded temperatures that have broken national records. That would include Helsinki, for example, in Finland, which recorded 47 degrees in the north. Now, that's the extent to which temperatures are changing through the world. Yeah. So recording what we call modern recorded norms for temperature recordings started well in the 1800s, and so we have a physical recording of how the temperature has been changing over time. Prior to that, of course, we have other technology that was used, like ice core drilling and so forth, to study what the climate was previously. Yeah.
And so it sounds like the trends are relatively clear. You said is it the 10 of the 13 warmest have been in recent years or something. It's alarming statistics and alarming data.
Yeah.
How confident are you in this data? How confident are you in the results?
Well, when you, and I hope our audience is familiar with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It was set up by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Program to assess the state of knowledge in terms of published knowledge, so peer-reviewed articles, books that have been published on the subject. And out of that state of assessment of knowledge came, in particular, the understanding that we need models to understand how the Earth would behave in future, in particular in relation to greenhouse gas emissions. And not just emissions, but greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. And I will come to why these temperatures are changing, because that's an important element. Now, in the past, we did these models and we ran global climate simulation models, if you may call them. Those models in the early parts, 20, 30 years ago, were largely looking at the atmosphere only. Over time, they have matured as computing power has improved and data has improved. Now we do what we call an ocean atmosphere coupling. So you take account of the oceans, they have their own energy circulation systems. You have the atmosphere, which has its own circulations of distribution of energy. And then those models are now also taking into account the aerosols or what we put out into the atmosphere from burning coal stoves and so forth. And what is key with those models is that they simulated what the climate could be with certain concentrations of greenhouse gases, and then made estimates or projections about what the weather patterns could be under a warm climate of X degree. You would see certain patterns. Now, what was projected was that with increasing carbon dioxide concentrations or greenhouse gas concentrations, the Earth's temperatures increase. With that increase, they project that we would have certain kinds of weather patterns which are not the norm. Now, the statement that we release on an annual basis is now backward-looking in terms of what have we actually experienced in different parts of the world, and then using that and compiling that and then publishing the statement. So what we publish in the statement is what is observed. And so when we compare what is observed with what the models predicted a few years ago in advance, there's now
Mohammed, thank you for joining
consistency in what the models were predicting would be a type of weather patterns, and therefore the extremes that we talk about. Helsinki, 47 degrees. Many other parts of the world experiencing droughts. Other parts of the world experiencing record rainfall. All point to extreme events that are happening now. And so when we publish next year, we will publish a summary of all extreme events that have happened in the last 10 years. A worrying picture that emerges is what we call the return period of some of these events. So where you used to have a drought that would be extended, for example, in the south of the USA at the moment, Texas, as one of the worst droughts on record. You would have expected the 1500s to have the last, I think, extreme drought was at 1500 and something. Now you're seeing a return period of those extreme events becoming smaller and smaller. And that's where the worry is that what is today's extreme events are going to become tomorrow's normal.
Okay, and I'll just remind our viewers that this is going out live so that they can put their questions to us if they like, and we'll do our best to pick those up if possible. Have to take the opportunity to have a drink. The question that I find myself asking when I hear this is, what do you say to those people who don't believe in climate change? Because whenever I have a conversation like this with someone, they're always able to cite some paper from the 1970s that proves us wrong. Or, I saw Lord Monckton walk past, who's quite a notorious climate skeptic, when we were doing the show yesterday. And if you try and talk to him, he'll say, but the weather stations are close to the airports or something.
Right.
So there'll be something. What would you say to people who are influenced by this kind of conversation?
Well, I always say that we don't experience climate. We experience weather, which in the long run aggregates into a climate condition, right? So climate is the long-term aggregation of weather events over time. So our daily experience of how the climate is changing is in how the weather patterns are changing, because that's our daily experience. You wake up every morning, you make a decision what to wear based on the information that is provided. And it is that observed pattern of the weather that is of concern, right? And points to, so I would normally say to anybody who is in doubt, is think carefully about what is your recent experience of weather patterns in your very recent past. And I think you would find very few people who will tell you they haven't experienced something out of the normal, whether they're in Tornado Valley, where they've had a record of those, or whether you're in New York, where you had a hurricane hit New York, or you are in Southern Africa, where you have record floods in parts of Namibia, where 10 millimeters of rain was your annual average, and you have 10 millimeters of rain in one day. So there's no average person, if I may use the term average, who has not experienced in the recent past some abnormal weather condition that they would say we've never experienced it before.
Please say we have received a question from Twitter. It says, does the intensity of 2011, do the intensity of the 2011 Thai floods reflect a global warming trend? Are these the kinds of things we can expect to see more of in the future?
Yeah, I wouldn't say directly the Thai floods per se, because we have to understand there's a number of combination of things. But similarly in the US, where you had flooding, what we will see are the precipitating, excuse the pun, the precipitating issues that result in flooding. Now, some of the Thai floods were a combination of factors. One, you had a hurricane, and the hurricane, of course, results in a lot of downpour, and then you had heavy rains thereafter. So the soil is already saturated. In the US, the floods, where again you had a very warm spring, so heavy snow melt, and so already the soil was saturated. So by the time you start to get rain, it's clear it has nowhere else to go, right, but to flow towards the ocean and follow its natural course. And as a result, you have flooding. So the question was, early warning was given in the US, also in Thailand. So whilst we cannot, it's the heavy precipitation, and some of those records have been broken in Thailand, and it's the combination of these issues that often results in devastation. So for Russia was the same, record high temperatures resulting in conditions that are conducive for runaway fires, and so you go down the scale. There is work, though, that seeks to attribute single events to climate change. But what we say is that it's very clear that the kind of temperature conditions we have currently, more warmer nights, longer warmer days, or periods of warming, fewer cooling days, in parts of the world where you would not expect that to be happening as a norm, means that there is a change to our climate, and we have to adapt to those changes. So the question would be, yes, we will continue to see extreme events continue, and our concern is that those become what is extreme today, becomes the norm tomorrow, and then we have